of these are related to driving. Total deaths for the year 2024, 18. 9 of those came while driving. So 50% of our deaths this year were from people in vehicles. 2 walking or hiking, 2 fell into the creek or the area of flash flooding, and then 5 designated as other. But again, we know so many times it is people in vehicles that get themselves in trouble when we've got water problems. So don't get off guard when there is a threat of flooding. Got some important safety advice for you. Louisiana that we've got to watch for the flooding, but it does extend across parts of the Gulf Coast, both coastal areas and interior parts of the southeast. So tomorrow into early Saturday, now we've got Hattiesburg, Mississippi, areas east of Jackson and Meridian. You'll be watching for you. Birmingham and Montgomery, down towards the Mobile area. Atlanta, you guys could see some at least localized flash flooding Friday morning into early Saturday. So the rain will begin to overspread sections of interior parts of the southeast as well. There's our upper level disturbance moving eastward. We've got that Gulf of Mexico moisture still very participatory. So we've got a lot of moisture to work with, and unfortunately increasing low level winds will just transport and pump more and more moisture into the area through the late part of the week. In addition to the flash flood threat, we've got the possibility of severe thunderstorms from parts of central and western Louisiana all the way into the state of Alabama. But Birmingham, Montgomery, Jackson, New Orleans, Mobile, getting into western parts of Florida, Pensacola, for example, you guys could see at least an isolated severe chance. I think we'll see at least scattered severe thunderstorms in this zone. Atlanta up towards Nashville, isolated severe chance for you as well. Torcon values of a 2. Farther west you go, down into southern sections of Alabama, southern, third of Mississippi, and then a good chunk of Louisiana, a Torcon of 3. So not a high risk of tornadoes, but not a 0 risk either. I think this would be an isolated risk of a tornado. Better chance that we see some of those gusty, damaging winds with the torrential rainfall rates. Friday at 4 o'clock, you can see we start the morning with very heavy rain across sections of the Gulf Coast. By lunchtime on Friday, Atlanta, North Georgia, we've got some scattered rain. Same for eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, the more persistent heavy rain closer to the Gulf Coast, southern sections of Alabama. Here comes the next slug of moisture into the late part of Friday. We'll have scattered rain up into parts of the upstate of South Carolina, North Georgia, but the most persistent, the heaviest of rain is going to be focused down along the I-10 corridor, areas just north. Saturday morning, starting off rainy across sections, at least scattered, of northern Alabama, North Georgia, northern Mississippi. But once again, Mike, the more persistent, the more widespread rain likely to be focused closer to the coast.
You know, you think about how
on Weather Unfiltered, much more on the dangerous flood threat, that's significant risk of flooding. In fact, the high risk of flash flooding today from the Weather Prediction Center, parts of East Texas and, of course, into Louisiana, those at the greatest risk, but good chances of flooding across parts of Louisiana, much of eastern Texas, even into southwestern Mississippi. And then tomorrow into Saturday, we're looking at Mississippi and Alabama with higher risks of some flash flooding. It is a likelihood from Birmingham to Montgomery back down into sections of, say, the Hattiesburg metro area, even southwestern parts of Mississippi. And the Trinity River at Liberty, Texas is still in major flood stage from the rounds of heavy rain that they've seen this month. You can see videos from above, of course, the drone showing the swollen river. That's one that's expected to stay in major flood stage, with other river gauges joining in major flood stage with the heavy rain that's coming. So unfortunately, it's not just flash flooding that we watch for, but the river flooding, and knowing that that's something that lasts longer, right? The rivers slowly rise and then they slowly fall. So the Trinity River, it's been in major flood stage at latest check right around 30 feet. Notice with the forecast for more rain, it's going to go back up. The previous record, 32.7 feet. Doesn't look like we get quite there, but again, on the rise and staying in that major flood stage. Isolated totals of 20 inches or more have come down over the last 2 weeks. So that's why we've been dealing with such a prolific flood concern. Grounds are saturated, rivers are swollen, and now we're adding more into the mix. Again, it's like, like on Thanksgiving, when you're already stuffed, you can't add any more in there. And unfortunately, that's exactly what we're doing with the rainfall. We've got too much rain. There's just nowhere for it to go. So any additional that falls will result in the flash flooding or those rivers getting even higher. Reds, that's 8 to 12 inches, 12 to 18 inches in the pink. So again, some of these spots have seen over 20 inches in just 2 weeks. When we look at river gauges in flood stage, you can see we've got moderate in the red triangles, major in the purple triangles. We anticipate that with this heavy rain coming, Mike, we're going to see more of those rivers go from red to purple, so major flooding.
They certainly may. Unfiltered, obviously some very stormy skies in West Texas. Those storms are now moving through the middle of the state.
Yes, absolutely. We've got Dallas getting soaked. We've got parts of East Texas, really high concern for flash flooding and ongoing river flooding. So unfortunately, high risk from the Weather Prediction Center. These are the most significant of flooding days, both when it comes to damage and when it comes to death. So really got to be aware of that. Let's take a live look at Dallas right now. You are watching Weather Unfiltered. We are watching significant and dangerous flooding expected today across parts of East Texas into Louisiana. So this is flooding today, tonight, and into tomorrow morning. And again, that high risk accounts for so many of our flood deaths. So these are really days where we've got to pay attention, stay off the roads if you're under flash flood warnings. And of course, if you are on the roads, you come across flooded roadways, please turn around, don't drown. Likely flooding from Dallas and Fort Worth down to Waco, College Station, and all the way over into the southwest corner of the state of Mississippi. So quite a bit of real estate dealing with that risk of flooding today. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect. This is south of Dallas, so we've got parts of the I-35 corridor from Waco to Austin. San Antonio not included, and then Abilene, San Angelo, and the counties in between under that watch until 5 o'clock local time. We have a few severe thunderstorm warnings right now, watching for gusty winds, possibility of some hail. But again, these storms are also producing really heavy rain, so we've got flash flood warnings ongoing right now along I-45 and I-35 near Waco. Closer look at this as Falls, Freestone, and Limestone counties under the warning until 3 o'clock local time. We've got very heavy rain moving into the area. Maybe a little bit of rotation there off to the west of Groesbeck. We're going to take a look at that or keep an eye on that. Some gusty winds with these heavy rain showers. And again, some of the severe warnings off to the west because of that risk of damaging wind. Now, when we look at where the rain goes, watching the Houston, Alexandria, Lake Charles area, it is those very saturated parts of East Texas and western Louisiana, Mike, that see more of the active heavy rain.
Alex, thank you for that. Texas and the lower Mississippi River Valley in just a few hours' time. Welcome in, everyone. You're watching Weather Unfiltered. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson. As always, with our expert, Dr. Nab, it is these high-risk days that unfortunately lead to the most loss of life, lead to the most damages as well.
And this is another one of those days where we have to remind ourselves to be a little bit more afraid of water than our knee-jerk reaction might lead us to, and do everything we can to stay out of the water. That could include a couple things, not driving on a water-covered road, but if you're in a really flood-vulnerable area that recently flooded in East Texas, I might think of staying with somebody who lives on higher ground tonight.
Not a bad idea. You
Rising water is going to be a problem, no doubt.
Yeah, we talk about some of these small creeks and streams. They run really high, they run really fast, and sometimes people also go to look at them, especially the kiddos. So you want to make sure you keep everybody away from high water on a day like today. We could see high water in places like Dallas, Texas. Of course, these urban areas, we get a lot of runoff, so it's not going to take maybe as much rain to lead to flooded intersections and underpasses. Dallas right now at 68.
You know, it's the south side of town that's been particularly hard hit. Severe thunderstorm warnings there, flash flooded warnings there. We've got ground delay here that's nearly 3 hours at DFW, so all kinds of problems today.
And even if you're not in the high-risk zone like Metro Houston, Metro New Orleans, you're still at risk for flooding this evening and overnight tonight. So, you know, sometimes when we have high risk, everybody else lets their guard down, but there's a pretty significant risk over a really large area.
Yeah, and when we finish the week, we're going to be watching for more.
For a really large area.
Yeah, and when we finish the week, we're going to be watching for more issues of flood days. Oftentimes bring the most deaths. This year, 2024, we have had 18 total deaths due to flash flooding. 9 of those, 50%, have been people who are in vehicles and driving at the time of flash flooding. Some walking or hiking, people fall in. That's why I say keep the kids away from these, you know, swollen creeks and streams. A lot of times you watch that water rushing, right? And it's interesting, and it attracts the little ones to go look at it, but you got to keep everybody away. Other 5 people. So again, most by far deaths occur from people in vehicles, and we don't want you to get caught off guard, when there's a threat of flooding. So here's some important safety advice for flooding as this complex and chances of rain moves off towards the east. So unfortunately, unsettled weather coming across other states, falling into the end of the week and start of the weekend. Tomorrow into early Saturday, it is parts of Mississippi and Alabama that hold the greatest risk for flash flooding. Likely flash flooding south of Birmingham, around Montgomery, down to Hattiesburg and Mobile. But you can see it's possible into some areas like Atlanta, still in Louisiana, up into parts of Tennessee. It's our upper level disturbance moving eastward that's going to help to propagate that rain and flooding chance farther to the east. Gulf of Mexico moisture continues to be pulled in, and actually low-level winds, they pick up, and so that's going to just draw in even more and more moisture. So No lack of moisture, unfortunately. The disturbance will help to provide the lift, of course. So we've got cloud cover, we've got rain, we've got thunderstorms. Some of these could actually be severe. Tomorrow, severe risk for parts of southwest Georgia, all the way back through South Texas. Gulf Coast areas along I-10 will be at greatest risk of seeing some of the scattered, I think, severe thunderstorms. Isolated severe risk gets us up into Arkansas, northern parts of Mississippi, around the Birmingham metro area, and as far east as near the Georgia-South Carolina state line. Torcon values tomorrow, not overly high, but a Torcon of 3 in the areas in red would tell us that we've at least got an isolated tornado risk. I doubt we'll see tornado watches, but I think we could see an isolated tornado. Here's Friday morning. We start off very soggy down into parts of the Gulf Coast, and then Friday afternoon, more rain likely. Friday late in the day through early Saturday, our next real serious slug of heavy rain coming through some of those same areas. So, Mike, closer to the Gulf Coast, I think greatest risk of flash flooding, but we could again see localized or isolated flash flooding well north into parts of the Tennessee Valley, weather unfiltered. We've got much more on the dangerous flood threat that's ramping up tomorrow morning. So when we look at the forecast, this is including the overnight and the early morning hours of Friday, rather. Texas, Louisiana, again, highest risk for flash flooding. But we keep a likelihood for flash flooding going Friday into Saturday morning, especially across parts of Mississippi and the state of Alabama. These are areas, again, also super saturated. And so we've got to watch for more flash flooding potential in these areas. Could see some problems as far north as Atlanta, as far south and west as Lake Charles and New Orleans. So we're going to keep Louisiana in the threat zone during the day Friday, even into Friday night. Well, the Trinity River at Liberty, Texas, it's still in major flood stage from the rounds of heavy rain this month. And unfortunately, it's expected to rise again with the forecast of rain yet to come. There's a look at drone video showing that river overflowing its banks. So these river floods are different than flash flooding. Flash flooding, of course, spikes quickly and it goes down quickly. Meanwhile, river flooding, it's more of a slow rise. Unfortunately, though, a slow fall as well. So when we look at the Trinity River there at Liberty, Texas, you can see latest check around 30 feet for this one. It's expected to go up. So it's going to stay in major flood stage, actually going a little higher than where it's been because of more rain coming into those rain gauges. Some of these areas across East Texas have seen over 20 inches of rain just within the last 2 weeks. So 20 plus inches of rain in 14 days. Pretty astounding numbers there for parts of East Texas. Even into western Louisiana, there are spots that have seen 8 to 12 inches in 2 weeks. So, a foot of rain in 2 weeks, that's also significant. Now, when we look at the rivers in flood gauge right now, river gauges in flood stage right now, we've got moderate flooding for the areas in the red triangles. Major flooding for the purple. There's that Trinity River, but it's going to be joined by other river gauges. Watch as the future radar shows that heavy rain overspreading the area. So river gauge is expected to rise. We'll see rivers go from moderate to major flooding in response to this flash flooding. So you can see all of those river gauges are going to get some significant rainfall. So that's why the forecast is for a lot of these numbers to go up. There is the forecast. Again, portions of western Louisiana into the state of Texas. More and more of those purple triangles, more and more of that major river flooding. So that is yet another issue in addition to the flash flooding that we'll see. We're continuing to track this here on Weather Unfiltered. We'll be right back.
What is the me espresso?
It's me being the espresso that keeps you up at night.
Oh, it's because you talk so much.
No, it's not, but it's her. It's her saying me espresso. It is the #1 song. Like if you go to today's top hits, it's the first one.
In your playlist?
No, it's on the main playlist.
Whose main playlist?
We'll go to your music. We'll go to your music. Your source.
I guarantee you that me espresso is not in there.
Me espresso is certainly going to be there. It's 100%. Dalton knows it. We know it. Okay.
It's fine.
All right, we're gonna.
Let's bet on this.
Okay.
Okay, dollar.
We'll check in with you guys after the next commercial. Right now, let's get to some serious weather. We actually have real weather to talk about. Unfortunately, flooding likely today. High risk from the Weather Prediction Center. And these days so often account for most of our flood damage and sadly most of our flood deaths. So really have to use caution today, especially when traveling. If you don't have to travel, don't. If flash flood warnings are in effect for your area, stay off the roads. Stay away from high water. If you come across a flooded roadway, turn around, don't drown. We're not trying to annoy you. We're giving you advice truly that you can live by. Too many of those deaths are people in vehicles who get themselves into the floodwaters, either intentionally or not. And through tomorrow morning, it's not just East Texas and Louisiana. Those are the best chance zones, but likelihood of flash flooding from Dallas-Fort Worth all the way over into southwest parts of the state of Mississippi. So there are going to be problems out there. Pretty widespread area of real estate. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 5 o'clock local time. We've got Abilene down towards San Angelo, over to the I-35 corridor, even a little bit of I-45 included, but Waco to Austin, probably that most populated stretch within our severe thunderstorm watch. Right now, we've got a flash flood warning around and east of Waco. We've got a few more back off to the southwest of Fort Worth. And then on the severe side, warnings off to the northwest of Abilene right now. Available energy, it's present. It is elevated. So we've got high to extreme levels of available energy. Storms taking advantage of that, and a lot of Gulf of Mexico moisture to work with means very hefty rainfall rates. So unfortunately, as high as 2 inches an hour possible, and that's just going to pile up on already very saturated soils. That's why there's such a high risk of flash flooding today and tonight. Look at the afternoon hours. Waco to Austin, big time rainfall. Tough afternoon of travel along I-35. Houston to Lake Charles up towards Alexandria is particularly active for the dinner time hour, as well as parts of West Texas, Mike.
Alex, thank you for that.
Setup of cities, but also just the fact that cities have so much pavement and so much non-green space that we get high water issues. So watch Houston as the afternoon, especially the evening hours, brings some of those heavy downpours. Then we get into the overnight and tomorrow morning, more heavy downpours possible. Through the day tomorrow at times, heavy rain falling. So again, that's going to tip the scales on the side of flash flooding. So be aware of that risk. Shreveport to Alexandria, Louisiana, much more widespread in the way of moderate to heavy rainfall later today and tonight. Continuing into the overnight hours, you can see at least scattered rain showers. I think at times some pockets of heavier downpours, especially farther to the south. So Alexandria and down 49. That's where some of the higher totals would be located, the 3 to 5+ inch amounts. But you can see we've got a lot of 4-inch totals being expected by the forecast models up towards Shreveport, probably in that 1 to 2 inch range. Some spots locally higher amounts of more than 5 inches. That would be just within today and tonight. So unfortunately, that is going to lead to flash flooding. Lake Charles to Beaumont. This is another area with very heavy rain coming for the late afternoon and the evening hours into the overnight. Watch as we keep scattered rain, at times heavy. Moving through the day tomorrow, still watching for some of those rain showers. And New Orleans, another spot, Dr. Nab, that is going to see not just rain, but the chance of strong to severe storms during the end of the week.
And Alex, all of these
deaths in 2024 because of flooding, 9 of those, 50%, when people are driving. So people in vehicles getting into floodwaters, intentionally or not, too many times that causes loss of life. Also walking, hiking, falling in, and of course the other category. But that's why I say you got to keep the kids away from, some of these high creeks and streams. They're running fast. They're interesting to look at, but too many times people get too close to the water and find themselves a victim as well. So we don't want you to get caught off guard when there is the threat of flooding. So here are some important safety tips to know. Farther to the east. So we've got to watch parts of Mississippi, parts of Alabama, even into Georgia, even parts of the Atlanta metro area could be looking at some localized flash flooding. There's the likelihood tomorrow into early Saturday. Greatest risk zone is going to be that area in yellow. So Hattiesburg to Meridian, over towards Montgomery. I think Tuscaloosa falls in there. Birmingham, you're awfully close. Possibility of flash flooding for Alexandria and Lake Charles. And again, as far northwest as Atlanta. Again, you got a lot of pavement. You've got a lot of roadways. Could see some of those fill up with water. You get some heavy rain moving in. Upper level disturbance moving to the east, and we've got plenty of Gulf of Mexico moisture to work with. So no lack there. In fact, actually, we'll see things bump up as winds out of the lower levels will increase. So that's just going to bring more moisture in. So now we're like, all right, we've already been, saturated or moist. Now we've got even more, and that disturbance provides the lift. So now you've got the unsettled weather, the clouds, the rain, the thunderstorms, some of which could be severe, by the way. Tomorrow's severe risk, especially along the I-10 corridor, closer to the Gulf Coast, brings the greater risk of severe weather, but an isolated chance farther to the north. Torcon values, 3 out of 10, so probably an isolated tornado. I'd be more concerned about the gusty winds that would accompany some of those heavy downpours. Friday morning, we start with heavy rain along I-10. So yet another morning this week where we've got big time rainfall rates coming across parts of Alabama and Florida and southern Mississippi. On Friday afternoon, Atlanta, Greenville, up towards Knoxville, you guys have some of the rain showers. Probably not as heavy and as widespread, but still could prompt some flash flooding. Look at late Friday. Now we've got another big zone of heavy rain for parts of Louisiana, southern Mississippi. That rolls east into the late evening and overnight. So southern Alabama, western Florida, parts of South Georgia get in on the heavy rain. Saturday morning, here's, it's like a 1, 2, 3 punch, Mike. We've got more heavy rain coming through New Orleans for Mobile. So, again, you may escape one round, but then there's the second and the third following that just make you more and more vulnerable to flooding.
It really does.
On Weather Unfiltered, we, of course, get back to our top story, dangerous flooding. Unfortunately, the high risk for today and tonight is not the only risk throughout the week. In fact, we're going to keep flooding chances going into our Saturday. So, again, through tomorrow morning, through Friday morning, high risk for the areas in red, but a good chance, likely flash flooding for areas in yellow. And that carries over into Friday through Saturday morning for parts of Alabama and Mississippi. Those are the areas with a likelihood of flash flooding. Possibility, though, from Atlanta still back into parts of East Texas and western Louisiana. And the Trinity River at Liberty, Texas, it's still in major flood stage from the rounds of heavy rain that we saw even at the start of the month. So May has been very, very soggy here across Texas, East Texas. And for Trinity, we look from above, that drone footage showing just how swollen the river is. Unfortunately, major flood stage now. It's actually going to go up even higher into major flood stage as a result of the rain that we're going to get now in the short term. So latest check of the Trinity River at Liberty, Texas, right around 30 feet. You can see that forecast is for that river to rise. So we saw a little bit of recession, but here we go back up with the heavy rain on the way. Isolated amounts of 20 inches or more coming down across parts of East Texas over the last 2 weeks. So areas east of the I-35 corridor have seen the most substantial rain, but areas in red, including Waco, parts of western Louisiana, 8 to 12 inches. And for the month, that is no slouch when it comes to rain. I mean, you're talking 12 inches of rain in 14 days. River gauges in flood stage right now. Red triangles, that's moderate. Of course, the purple triangle, there's our Trinity River at Liberty in major flood stage. But watch as these river gauges get round after round of heavy rain, torrential rain, and again, at times, 2 inches or more per hour. We see that continue into Friday morning, Friday afternoon. Here comes another slug of rainfall for some of these communities. So the forecast is for a lot of these rivers to go up. And so now we've got a few rivers that'll likely end up in major flood stage, with plenty of rivers at least in moderate flood stage for both western Louisiana and eastern Texas. Then again, of course, there's also that flash flood risk. So river flooding, a little slower to go up, slower to go down, and then the short fuse flash flooding. That's going to be a real issue here in the next river gauges in flood stage. And the expectation is that there will be more, and the ones that are will go higher. So we take you to Troop, Texas, east of the I-35 corridor. So unfortunately, flash flooding, the main concern, but it's not the only concern. We do have severe weather ongoing right now. One warning up towards the Louisiana-Texas state line. But look at all the flash flood warnings in and around the Waco area. Over here into East Texas, it's hail that we're concerned with out of this storm. It is Sabine, San Augustine, and Shelby counties under the warning until 3:15. So we've seen storms producing hail. This one could bring you 1 inch diameter or greater hail along Highway 96. We look at the hail core out of this, and this is tracking greater than 1 inch diameter hail. So when we look at some of these amounts, they could be over, $half sized out of this. 1.3 inches would get us a little bit greater than a quarter. So quarter to $half size hail, a good bet. Available energy, it is on the high side here across parts of Texas. So high to extreme available energy, showers and thunderstorms, they are intensifying. So we've got the severe risk. But again, remember, you get thunderstorms, they're going to produce some really heavy rainfall rates, the 1 to 2 inches per hour. So unfortunately, the flash flood warnings that we see, not going to be the only flash flood warnings we get through the rest of today. Look at the future radar and the very heavy rain and thunderstorms from Victoria to Houston to Lake Charles to Alexandria. Mike, the severe risk is one thing, but unfortunately, these are areas that just can't take the kind of rain that's on the way.
There's so many dangers.
Their lights on, everyone's going really slow, and now we look at what the rest of the afternoon holds, and it is the thunderstorm chances. Late day drive through dinner time into the mid-evening. It's going to be a tough time there for Houston. Very heavy rain could also lead to some of the flash flooding concerns that we've been telling you about. Tomorrow morning, we start the morning with some at least light rain showers possible across the area. I don't think they'll be quite as heavy, but Heavy rain showers, moderate rain showers possible late morning tomorrow through the afternoon. So there will be yet another push of rain coming into parts of East Texas, the Houston, Beaumont, Galveston areas through the day tomorrow. Now we get you to Shreveport, Alexandria, the I-49 corridor. You can see some of the moderate rain beginning to advance in by mid-evening or late afternoon. I guess I should say early evening, dinner time. That'll continue through late evening. Overnight, I think we could see some pockets of heavy downpours. And then again tomorrow, still rain in the cards for us. We've got to watch for the chance that we could also be looking at some flash flooding problems as far west as, Lake Charles during the day on Friday. Locally, higher amounts of 5 inches or more possible here along and to the south of I-49. I'd say Alexandria and west. That's where the best chance of that'll be. Farther to the north, lesser totals, but still 1 to 2 inches in Shreveport could lead to some flash flooding problems. Obviously, the farther south you go, that's where you get into the really troublesome rainfall amounts. Lake Charles, Beaumont, you're going to get soaked later this afternoon and evening, and that will continue at times, Dr. Knabb, during the overnight.
Well, Alex, we are in the...
We have had 18 deaths due to flash flooding, half of those, 9, occurring with people driving in the floodwaters. Whether they intentionally drove over the floodwaters or not, people in vehicles are just so susceptible to dying via flash flooding. And unfortunately, many people are caught off guard when there's the threat of flooding. So the whole point is, don't be. We've got some really important safety advice, things to remember. Take a listen. We still have a likelihood of flash flooding tomorrow into parts of Mississippi and Alabama and some very highly populated areas in both of these states. So Hattiesburg, Meridian, over towards Montgomery, Tuscaloosa. These would be the areas with the likelihood of flash flooding tomorrow morning through Saturday morning. So starting about 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, going into Saturday morning. Possible flash flooding as far north as Atlanta, as far southwest, still as East Texas and southwest Louisiana. So we're still watching for water problems in these areas. Our upper level disturbance is responsible for that rising air, right? That's providing the lift, keeping things unsettled, cloudy, rainy, stormy. We've also got Gulf of Mexico moisture being pulled northward, and low level wind will actually increase, and that's going to allow even more of that Gulf of Mexico moisture to work in, especially to the Gulf Coast states. Severe weather going to be a possibility as well. So just like today across East Texas, we've got the risk of severe storms and the risk of flash flooding. Corpus Christi over towards southwest Georgia. Those would be areas at greatest risk, especially I-10 cities like New Orleans, Biloxi, Mobile, Pensacola, even as far east as Panama City. Tomorrow, Torcon values 3 out of 10 for New Orleans, for Mobile, a 2 out of 10 farther to the north. So an isolated risk of a tornado. I'd be most concerned about the gusty, damaging winds that will accompany these heavy downpours. Tomorrow morning, we start with the heavy rain again, focused closer to the Gulf Coast. Scattered rain, though, thunderstorms possible throughout the day Friday, as far north as northern Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, and North Georgia. But the most persistent and heaviest of showers would be focused there along our Gulf Coast zone. So southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. Going to be a really soggy Friday night for you, even into Saturday morning, a final round coming in. So, Mike, it's not just one round of really heavy rain. We've got round after round. So, you escape the first one without flooding, then the second one comes in. You escape that one, maybe. There's a third round of heavy rain.
It's going to be nonstop.
Unfiltered. In fact, more on the dangerous flood situation and severe weather threat. The flood risk doesn't end today. We've got another risk coming tomorrow. So, of course, the high risk day is today, Texas and Louisiana, but likelihood of flash flooding everywhere in yellow. And we'll keep that going into tomorrow. The greatest likelihood of flash flooding Friday into Saturday morning, focused from northeast Louisiana, or at least the northeast part of the boot, through southern Mississippi into parts of Alabama. We could see flooding, though, as far to the north and west as Atlanta, Georgia. The Trinity River at Liberty, Texas, it's still in major flood stage from the heavy rain that we have seen this month. A view from above shows just how swollen this river is. Again, it's in major flood stage now. Unfortunately, with the additional rain yet to come, it's going to stay in major flood stage and rise. So we were watching it start to go down a bit, but this influx of moisture coming courtesy of this week's rain is not going to do us any favors there. There's the Trinity River at Liberty, Texas. At latest check, very close to 30 feet. We'll be watching this rise with the rainfall coming in as we move into the end of the week and weekend. There have been isolated totals of 20 inches or more just over the last 2 weeks. So imagine that. In 14 days, we have seen 20 inches of rain or more. Some big time rain. I got something on my dangly, so bear with me. 20 inches of rain or more coming down in the last 2 weeks. Areas in red, that's 8 to 12 inches. So we've seen some really, really hefty rainfall totals. Rivers in flood stage right now, the red triangles, those are moderate flood stage. The purple triangles, those are major flood stage. These areas are going to get more rain. So the rivers are going to go up. So we're going to see rivers in moderate flood stage now, get to major flood stage soon enough. Future radar showing the story. You can see the very heavy rain moving through parts of eastern Texas into the state of Louisiana, into Mississippi as well, where, again, we've already got rivers in flood stage. And it's not just one round of heavy rain. We've got more rounds on the way moving through the day Friday. Friday morning, we start with some heavy rain. Saturday, we're going to keep some rain showers, at least around during, I think, the morning hours, particularly into Louisiana and Mississippi. So, again, by the time all is said and done, we're going to be seeing those forecast levels go up even farther. Plenty of rivers now in the major flood stage. Those are the purple triangles. The red triangles are the moderate flood stage. Rainfall still to come. These areas, again, picking up 3 to 5 inch totals. Those are the areas in yellow. So Mississippi, Louisiana, East Texas, you've got some big time rain coming, 1 to 2 inches for a lot of the zone. So unfortunately, not doing the river flood threat any favors, nor the flash flood threat. A great time lapse, and then somebody just like walks in front of the camera during the good part and messes it up, right? Yeah. I'm not the only one. Like, you just, you're like,
you got to put up cones or something that says,
like a
do
sign,
not,
like I'm doing a time
do
lapse.
not walk
people.
here.
Yeah, but
that was really excellent.
Hey, that one was good. Right now, we are watching for not just severe weather, but flash flooding too, and actually a high risk of it today. This is Weather Unfiltered. I'm Alex Wilson, Mike Bettis, Dr. Nab in the house as well. Again, high risk of flash flooding. These days account for most of the deaths and most of the damage.
It really does. So you think about, we only get about 4 of these days a year, but they count for roughly 40% of all flood deaths we see each year.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a big number for only 4 days.
Only 4 days, yeah. So unfortunately, we've been telling you all about the flash flood threat today. There's also a significant severe weather risk across parts of Texas, even a little bit in New Mexico. We've got a severe thunderstorm watch until 11 o'clock Central Time for the areas in the western yellow shaded area. This I-35 corridor, that watch is in effect until 5 o'clock local time. And then we've got a tornado watch from areas east of Lafayette, Louisiana, over to the Houston and College Station areas in Texas. This in effect until 10 o'clock local time. So tornadoes, and then again, very heavy rain possible out of our storms today. The rainfall rates are going to be intense. That could prompt flash flooding, and it will add to more river flooding that's already ongoing. Flash flood warnings here around and east of Waco. So between Dallas and Austin, that's where we've seen the most persistent of rainfall, the heaviest of amounts, and where we already have active flash flooding ongoing. This is not going to be our only zone of flash flood warnings today. I anticipate much more, especially as we get into the evening and overnight. Right now, we've got some severe warnings across the southeastern parts of New Mexico, getting into extreme West Texas. That, of course, is where we've got that newest severe thunderstorm watch. Closer look, though, at the Waco area points to the east, where, again, we've got our flash flood warning. Falls, Freestone, and Limestone counties under the warning until 5 o'clock local time. This is radar and gauge indicated. And notice some of these communities are still getting absolutely soaked with more heavy rain coming down. Through the rest of today, areas into eastern Texas, it's the severe stuff, but also the really heavy rain. So a 1-2 punch. You really got to stay weather aware today. Stay off the road. Stay in your safe spot. But again, could have to, seek refuge up if there's flooding. Obviously, lowest level, most interior room where you want to be if there's severe weather. So today, guys, not a day to, check out on what's happening in the weather.
We'll stay on top of that. Alex, thank you.
You're under a tornado watch as well. So severe weather and flash flooding for the Houston metro. You can see afternoon into the evening going to be the most active time for us. But through the overnight hours, at least some scattered showers and storms. Tomorrow by midday and afternoon, we've still got wet weather in the forecast. I think plenty of light to moderate rain, but there will be some embedded thunderstorms in there, some heavier downpours as well. Finally, getting into late Friday, I think we get a little bit more dry time. Areas off to the east, obviously, you're going to hold on to the rain a little bit longer. So Shreveport to Alexandria this evening, you can see the heavy rain moves in, and at times it's just going to be coming down in bucketfuls. Really heavy rain around the Alexandria area, Natchitoches as well. Lesser amounts to Shreveport, but still 1 to 2 inches likely up that way. But down towards Alexandria, that's where I anticipate the 3, 4, even up to 5 inch totals. Some spots could locally exceed that. You get a few rounds of heavy rain, and again, at 2 inches per hour, you could easily, reach or exceed a half foot. Lake Charles over towards Lafayette, You can see some of the heaviest rain arriving a little bit later for these areas. So I'd say mid to late evening, the onset of some of the heaviest and steadiest rain. It continues through the overnight hours, a little bit more scattered in nature. Then tomorrow, more rain in the cards for us with scattered rain and at times some thunderstorms. So we're going to actually keep the flash flood risk going for places like this into Saturday morning. There's New Orleans. Things get active around midnight, staying with the heavy rain chances at times during the day on Friday, especially, Dr. Nab, during the second half of the day.